Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Luckiest Peach podcast. I am your host, Rachel, the Lucky Peach. Welcome back to Cult of the Month. If you listened to the extra August episode 2 weeks ago, something happened where I was in the middle of loudly talking about being gay, and my dad walked in my room. And it was very awkward for me. He just popped in and out, but still, my parents have no respect for this podcast or for me being on any podcasts. They just walk in and out as they please. It doesn't happen too often, but it has happened often enough. I believe on this podcast specifically, it's happened 2 or 3 times. I know with my dad, it's happened twice. I'm not sure if my mom has walked in. It happens quite often on the Nerdcore live show, though. I'm not happy about it, but they don't listen to me. So I decided to turn it into a bit because why not laugh at my pain? So my friend Tay has called it the Brian and Tracy interruption hour, so we're going with that. Anyways, it is later in that same day that I recorded that episode, actually. They left, thankfully. So I now have regained my motivation to record multiple episodes in one day. Just because the fall semester is starting up and I want to get ahead as much as I can. In terms of most of the episodes, I can't really do that. I can do Cult of the Month and drunk commentaries early for sure. But because the reviews kind of rely on recent releases and because the website I use to compile my lists of what's releasing each month, that it doesn't update until the last week of each month. Those I have to, still record at the same time. But the other episodes I can definitely do ahead of time, which is what I'm doing now. I actually watched this movie a couple weeks ago. I was not planning on making this the episode. I think the original plan was Logan's Run, and then it got taken off HBO Max. So, yeah. So now we're here doing this one. Also because I enjoyed it, and I also mentioned the remake of this movie in the Movies That Made Me Gay episode. So, why not? Why not? So with that being said, the movie is The Stepford Wives from 1975. This is the first time I had seen it. The remake starring Nicole Kidman and directed by Frank Oz, released in 2004. I basically grew up watching that movie. As I mentioned before, it was part of my not that movie's particularly, although I did love that movie a lot growing up, but just Nicole Kidman in general was part of my sexual awakening as a kid. So yeah, I know that there was an older film for quite some time. I never, for whatever reason, I just never watched it. And as I've mentioned in past episodes, I have a little book that says cult movies or cult classics. And I was flipping through it and I saw it on there and I was like, I think it's time I watch this one. So I did. And now we're on this episode talking about it. So yeah, it's different than the 2004 film. The only reason I'm making that comparison is because I've seen the 2004 film at least a dozen times. This is the first time I'm watching it. I'm just going to compare them. Basically, they are different. They're both satirical, obviously, but their genre and the way they depict the satire is completely different. So if you've seen the 2004 one, part of the reason I'm bringing that one up is because, to my knowledge, at least in my generation, the 2004 one is more popular, even though I don't know that many people that know of that movie. So y'all are missing out. Y'all are missing out on some good 1950s housewife satire. I'm missing out on it. Yeah, that being said, that one's more of a comedy, like a straight comedy of like, oh, this is so stupid. It has a happy ending, blah, blah, blah. This isn't. Well, this is more of like the original plot. So, like, it is based on a novel by Ira Levin from 1972. I believe. So, yeah, the novel itself is very, very similar to the 1975 film. So I guess 2004 one is the cheap shot, but they're both good. They're both good. I like both of them. I have the DVD of the 2004 one. Don't have the DVD of this because I just saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago. For those who don't know, Ira Levin also wrote Rosemary's Baby, the novel that the Polanski movie was based on. It is a good movie, but we don't support Polanski in this household. We don't support Polanski in this household. Fuck Polanski. Keep him out of the United States. Anyways, yeah. So anyways, this one is described as a satirical, psychological horror film rather than a comedy. So it's directed by Brian Forbes, written by William Goldman, and it stars Catherine Ross, Paula Prentice, and Peter Masterson. Is he related to Danny Masterson? From No, not related. Not related. I mean, that's fine. Danny Masterson is a rapist. Anyways, getting off topic here. So yeah, the synopsis of the plot. I will get more into the further plot like I do in each episode. But the synopsis is that it follows a woman who relocates with her husband and children from New York City to the Connecticut community of Stepford, where she comes to find the women live unwaveringly subservient lives to their husbands. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I should get into that. I still don't have a method for how I approach these episodes, so I apologize. I'll figure that out. I say that, and what is this now? Like the 5th Cult of the Month episode, but I will figure it out. I also I talk about these movies in a certain way each episode, and then I forget by the time I get to the recording the next one. So, yeah, you get what you get. I mean, I've said that before. You get what you get with this podcast. I have just no methods. The only episode I actually have a method to is the Streaming Wars, really. So I kind of have to have a method for that one, though. Anyways, so it was released February 12th, 1975 by Columbia Pictures. They distributed it. The production company is Palomar Pictures. It runs 115 minutes, which is nearly 2 hours. That's about an hour and 55 minutes. Yeah. It does not say, does it say the budget? I don't know. It just says that the box office is $4 million. Which is more standard for like a cult classic film. Like we discussed last month with American Werewolf in London, it actually did pretty well commercially. So like, yeah, I went into a whole conundrum about whether or not American Werewolf in London should be considered a cult classic, considering how commercially well it was received, and the fact that it won an American Academy Award, because that doesn't, by definition, a cult classic is a film that does not do well originally and then over time garners a following. But I don't know. It was a conundrum. Cult classic is whatever you make it. I don't fucking know. Yeah, so the plot is that Joanna Eberhard is a young wife who moves with their husband Walter and their two daughters from Manhattan to the idyllic Fairfield County, Connecticut suburb of Stepford. Loneliness quickly sets in as Joanna, a mildly rebellious, aspiring photographer, finds that the women in town all look flawless and are obsessed with housework, but have few intellectual interests. The men all belong to the exclusionary local men's association, which Walter joins to Joanna's dismay. Neighbor Carol Van Sand's sexually submissive behavior to her husband Ted and her odd repetitive behavior after a car accident also strike Joanna as strange. Joanna subsequently befriends the sloppy, irrepressible Bobby Marco, with whom she finds common interests and shared ideas, along with the glamorously beautiful tennis-playing trophy wife, Charmaine Wimperis. The three organize a women's liberation meeting, but the gathering is a failure when the other wives continually divert the discussion to cleaning products. Joanna is also unimpressed by the boorish men's association members, including the intimidating president Dale Koba. Stealthily, the men's association collects information on Joanna, including her picture, her voice, and other personal details. When Charmaine returns from a weekend trip with her husband as an industrious, devoted wife who has fired her maid and destroyed her tennis court, Joanna and Bobby start investigating. With ever-increasing concern, the reason behind the submissive and bland behavior of the other wives. Bobby and Joanna start house hunting in other towns. Later, Joanna wins a prestigious contract with a photo gallery. When she tells Bobby the good news, Joanna is shocked to find her freewheeling friend has abruptly changed into another clean, conformist housewife with no intention of moving. Joanna panics and visits a psychiatrist, to whom she voices her belief that the men in the town are in a conspiracy of somehow altering the psyches of the women. The psychiatrist recommends that she leave town until she feels safe. After leaving the psychiatrist's office, Joanna returns home to pick up her children, only to find out that her children are missing and Walter evasive about their whereabouts. Joanna sneaks out of her house and goes to Bobby's house, but grows frustrated when Bobby refuses to engage with her in a meaningful way. Desperate and disturbed, Joanna stabs Bobby with a kitchen knife. Bobby does not bleed, but it goes into a loop like a malfunctioning computer, thus revealing the real Bobby has been replaced by a fembot. Joanna later returns home and bludgeons Walter with the fire poker, demanding where their children were taken to. He tells Joanna that their children are at the men's association, after which Walter loses consciousness. Despite sensing she may be the next victim, Joanna sneaks into the mansion which houses the men's association, in hopes of finding her children. However, Joanna falls right into the trap that was set up for her as she finds herself face to face with the mastermind of the whole operation, Dale Koba, who tells Joanna that her children are really with Charmaine, and eventually her own unfinished robot replica. Joanna is shocked when she witnesses its soulless, empty eyes. The Joanna replica brandishes a nylon stocking and smilingly approaches Joanna to strangle her as Koba looks on. Sometime later, the artificial Joanna placidly peruses the local supermarket amongst the other wives, all glamorously dressed. One of the aisles feature an African-American couple bickering over their life in Stepford. As they make their way through the store, they each vacantly greet one another. During this sequence, the camera zooms in on Joanna and, with subtle irony, reveals normal-looking eyes. Later, during the end credits, still pics show a smiling Walter driving the family car, picking up his new Stepford wife from the supermarket with their children in the backseat. So if you've seen the 2004 film, you know that this is drastically different from that. In the 2004 film, it's kind of swapped around to where Joanna is like a successful television reality show producer and creator, and she's very powerful, and Walter's frustrated that she has so much power over him, which is ridiculous. It's okay for a woman to make more money than her husband. That's perfectly fine. But sexism. So yeah, they moved to Stepford. It's more of a comedy in a way of this is ridiculous. Charmaine is kind of, they changed Charmaine to a gay male character. I forgot his name. Played by, what's his name? I can't remember this now that I'm fucking thinking about it. I hate that. I always, y'all know this. I know this. I always do this. Who is it? Played by Roger Bart. Yeah, they replaced Charmaine with Roger Bart. Yeah. And then, so there's homosexuality explored in, this suburbs that's stuck in the 50s with fembots. It obviously adds some of the new technological stuff that we had in 2004 as opposed to the 70s, as well as it has a happier ending, with spoiler alert, but I mean, I already told you the whole plot to the original movie, so it's too late for that. Joanna, Walter comes around and Joanna fakes being turned into a fembot, and they kill Glenn Close's husband, played by Christopher Walken. Yeah, that's it has a happier ending. It's rough, but it has a happier ending. And again, it's a comedy rather than a psychological horror. There's obviously thriller aspects to it, but it's a lot different. Yeah. So the cast, as I mentioned before, we have Catherine Ross as Joanna, Paula Prentice as Bobby Marco, Peter Masterson as Walter Eberhard, Nanette Newman as Carol Van Sant, Tina Louise as Charmaine Wimpers, Patrick O'Neill as Dale Diz Koba, and that's the main cast. Analysis. Film scholar John Kenneth Moore interprets the Stepford Wives as a film essay about what it means to be part of an unspoken underclass. That's all it says. Can I get some further explanation about that? Anyways, yeah. So initially, Diane Keaton was to play Joanna, but she turned it down. She said her analyst didn't like the script. So, yeah. Jean Seberg was also considered, but she declined as well. Tuesday Weld initially accepted, but canceled right before filming began, and then Catherine Ross was cast. Yeah. So Mary Stuart Masterson, who is Peter Masterson's daughter, actually played one of the kids in the movie. Yeah. So it was filmed in a variety of towns in Fairfield. So that, it's the 70s, so of course it was most likely filmed on location, especially for something lower budget. So that makes sense. But it's good that they filmed it on location, rather than on location in one city like we do now. Which I guess the way that the film industry has progressed, I kind of get why they do that, but it kind of sucks. That every movie now is filmed in either Atlanta, New York, LA, Toronto, or Sydney or something. They're all filmed in the same locations, and it kind of sucks now once you realize that. There's an art to obviously set production, but or production designers, but yeah, once you know that it's not fully filmed on location, kind of sucks. Anyways, yeah, a lot of scheduling difficulties delayed the filming. It was originally supposed to be filmed in 1973 and then was pushed back a year. Yeah. So Forbes purposely chose white and bright colors for the setting of the film, attempting to make a thriller in sunlight. With the exception of the stormy night finale, the film is almost oversaturated with bright light and cheery settings. All the locations were actual places. No sets were built for the film. Tension developed between Forbes and the screenwriter over the casting of Nanette Newman. as one of the wives, who was Forbes' wife at the time. Or they could still be married, I don't know. Goldman wanted the wives to be depicted as model-like women who dressed provocatively. But after casting Newman, this was not to be. As Goldman stated, he felt that Newman's physical appearance did not match the type of the woman he imagined, and as a result, this caused a change in appearance costuming for all of the other wives. That's sexist as fuck, man. Her belly doesn't fit the role, so we gotta change the whole wardrobe. Shut up, man. Goldman also said that he found Newman to be a perfectly good actress. However, Goldman was also unhappy with some rewrites that Forbes contributed. In particular, Forbes toned down Goldman's horrific ending. Actor Peter Masterson, who was friends with Goldman, secretly called Goldman for his input on scenes, creating additional stresses. Nanette Newman stated that the ending was deliberately filmed by the director in an unreal way, since they were almost like a ballet moving in and out, up and down the aisle. Goldman later claimed that the film could have been very strong, but was rewritten and altered, and I don't think happily. I don't know what the original plan was, but I kind of agree. Like, something feels off about this movie. Something feels off. I don't know if I forgot what I was going to say. I don't know. Something feels off about it to me. Like, even watching it, I was like, this is good. And there's a lot to say here. But something just felt wrong. And I don't know if that was due to those rewrites, or I don't know what it was, but something just didn't feel right. And I think that's kind of why I enjoyed the 2004 more. Because I'm like, it doesn't feel like there's like a secret tension that has nothing to do with the movie. You know, when you can feel like the tension that an actor has with the director because they have beef or something, like The Shining, for example, with Shelley and Stanley, which Shelley deserved better. Like, you know when you can feel that? You can feel that something wasn't right on set in a movie. That's what this movie kind of feels like. Something felt off. And it kind of took me out of the movie, but whatever. Yeah, so it grossed approximately $4 million in North America. What was the fucking budget, man? It has a rating of 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, and an average rating of 6.19 out of 10. The site's consensus states, the Stepford Wives' inherent satire is ill-served by Brian Forbes' stately direction, but William Goldman's script excels as a damning critique of misogynistic society. I agree with that. Some critics deride its leisurely pace. Most applaud the quiet domestic thrills the film delivers in the final third and earlier sections as clever, witty, and delightfully offbeat. As for the satire of the film, Roger Ebert, as you guys know, we don't like Roger Ebert here at the Luckiest Peach, but we will see what he had to say. He wrote, the actresses have absorbed enough TV or have such an instinctive feeling for those phony, perfect women in the ads that they manage all by themselves to bring a certain comic edge to their cooking, their cleaning, their gossiping, and their living debts. Get fucked, Roger. Anyways, Jerry Oster of the New York Daily News awarded the film with a middling 2 out of 4 stars, describing the screenplay as a tedious and padded adaptation of source material. Variety summarized the film as a quietly freaky suspense horror story and praised Ross's performance as excellent and assured. John Seymour of the Santa Maria Times also gave the film a favorable review, deeming it an epic nightmare boasting gripping drama. Devin Coggin of Entertainment Weekly wrote that the finale was deeply divisive, and the actress for Joanna stated retrospectively that if she was to revise the ending, she would have Joanna fight harder. I agree. I think it's fucked up that they had her submit in the end. But now that I think about it, having seen Rosemary's Baby as well, I think Ira Levin just likes having the women in his novel just lose at the end. I don't know. something to think about. Bottoms up. And the devil laughs. Anyways, so obviously because of the 70s, I want to say obviously because of the 70s, but the feminist movement was big in the 70s. The second wave was big in the 70s. The initial reaction to the film by feminist groups was not favorable, understandably, with one studio screening for feminist activists being met with hisses, groans, and guffaws. Cast and crew disagreed with the perceived anti-woman interpretations, with Newman recalling Brian Forbes always used to say, if anything, is anti-men. Despite Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique being a major influence on the original novel upon which the film was based, Friedan's response to the film was highly critical, calling it a ripoff of the women's movement. Friedan commented that women should boycott the film and attempt to diminish any publicity for it. Writer Gail Green, however, lauded the film, commenting, I loved it. Those men were like a lot of men I've known in my life. Feminist screenwriter Eleanor Perry came to the film's defense, stating that it presses buttons that make you furious. The fact that all the Stepford men wanted were big breasts, big bottoms, a clean house, fresh perked coffee, and sex. I agree with the latter group. It's an issue I have with feminism as a feminist myself, is that there are certain groups, particularly white feminists, who are like, if it depicts sexism in any way, even if it's satire, boycott it. Or missing the satire altogether. It's like white feminists specifically miss the satire completely. Like, it goes completely over their heads. They just see it on the surface. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but reading Betty Friedan's opinion on it, that's what it seems like. It seems like she just saw it on the surface, because again, with any satire, you have to think about the movie. You can't just watch it and whatever. Like, you have to think about it. There are certain movies that you can sit back and watch without thinking about them. This is not one of those movies. A lot of psychological horror you can't just sit back and watch, because it's psychological. It's supposed to make you think, as well as being a horror film. So it is one of those movies that you have to look on the surface of, or you have to look beyond the surface of, because if you were to watch the 2004 one, because it's a comedy, it makes it more obvious that it's a satire, because society is accustomed to comedic satire rather than serious satire. So I can see where somebody would watch the original and be like, what the fuck is this? That's just not the case. Just because it's not a comedy doesn't mean it can't be satire. Yeah, so it's, again, the satirical context of it is more obvious if you were to watch the remake. But again, anything that is satirical requires some thought. You're not just gonna read The Crucible or watch a film of The Crucible and be like, I don't get it. Because it's a satire, you're gonna have to think about it. The movie or the play are not gonna jump out and be like, hey, this is about the Red Scare. No. It's not gonna straight out come at you and say that directly. Nor is any satire, really. So I kind of think that's ridiculous to say that it's actually fucked up, because, no, if you thought about it for 2 seconds, you'd be like, oh, I see what it's doing. It's being on the nose and obvious, so you can be like, oh, we're not supporting this. We're not supposed to be supporting this. Anyways, it did win a Saturn Award for Best Actress, Catherine Ross. It was also nominated for Best Science Fiction Film at the Saturn Awards. And in 2001, the AFI, American Film Institute, put it on the 100 Years, 100 Thrills list, or nominated it. I don't know what the hell that, if it's 100 Years, 100 Thrills, why the hell is it nominated? Part of the list, maybe? I don't know. And in 2008, it was nominated for top 10 science fiction from the AFI. Yeah. Yeah, John Kenneth Moore considers The Stepford Wives one of the best horror films of the 1970s. Jordan Peele said that he was inspired by this movie to make Get Out. And again, if you watch this film and have seen Get Out, it makes a lot of sense. It adds up. Like, that's my favorite part. That was my favorite part of like reading this article after I watched the film, was like, again, like, you can be inspired by anything and you can see those parallels of where Jordan Peele was inspired by Stepford Wives. And it, for me, it makes me enjoy Get Out even more, to like know certain cult classics, certain niche films that inspired a new, bigger, like more commercially successful film, and to notice those parallels. It's beautiful. I love it. And it immediately made me like this film more. Like I said before, I do prefer the 2004 remake, because of the comedy aspect, because it makes it even more obvious, and also because I grew up in the 2000s, so I understand that better than I'm gonna understand what life was like for women at the time that this film was made, because I wasn't alive. I didn't experience. I can read about it and I can understand it from that context, but I'm on the outside looking in. Whereas when I grew up, I was witnessing it, I was experiencing it. So the 2004 one is kind of easier for me to understand. That being said, there was a television film unrelated to, I think unrelated to this. I don't know. Well, it came out in 1980, so it could be connected. I don't know. It doesn't say it's a direct sequel. It just says it's related. It doesn't say it's a direct sequel. But there's a television film called Revenge of the Stepford Wives. Starring Don Johnson. Wow. That's Dakota Johnson's dad, in case you're wondering. And then in 1987, another television film called Stepford Children. And then in 1996, The Stepford Husbands. I'll be honest, I'm not interested in either of those. But of course, in 2004, we have the remake, Stepford Wives, directed by Frank Oz. I can recommend that any day. I recommend both of these. I think they're great. What did I give it on the peach-o-meter? And by the peach-o-meter, I mean, let me look at Letterboxd. The Stepford. I need to be prepared for these. No, wrong movie. Where did I give it? I gave it 3.5 stars. 3.5 peaches out of 5. That doesn't mean I didn't like it. That's favorable on my side. It's like, I like it, but like, it could be better. And like I said before, you can see where the writing, or I guess the direction, really slipped, and where there was tension where there shouldn't have been. That could be from between the cast and the director. Yeah, and again, I prefer the 2004 one. Yeah, so that's all I have to say about that, really. Go watch this movie. Thank you for listening. I will see you next week with our review of Annette. That'll be interesting because it's an interesting movie. Anyways, thank you to my patrons at patreon.com/luckypeach. Brad, Gio, Luis, and Abby, thank you for being there. Also, if you join Patreon at patreon.com/luckypeach, you get the episodes a week early. And depending on which tier you're on, you also get video access to each episode, among other perks. So go check that out for sure. But again, thank you for listening. You can find me everywhere at Lucky Peach, LVCKY Peach. If you go to any of my socials, you can find a link tree, which makes it easier for you to find me. It has my Twitter, my Instagram, my TikTok, my Twitch, Letterboxd, Discord connect that from this podcast, and Patreon at patreon.com/luckypeach. I always forget something. What is it? What am I forgetting? Am I forgetting something? Oh, I'm not. Oh, and YouTube. it was freaking exciting. Yeah, but you can find me everywhere there. Just go to the link tree. But my username is Lucky Peach on all of those. So yeah, thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Stay peachy.